first of all, we will have Jane's portrait. We just press this. Is that right? No, that one. There we go. Which I finished a couple of months ago. And I believe it's still at the Framers. I think so. It's not, the actual portrait's not here yet. This, I mean, formally this work, when I started it, I was thinking, you know, as usual, not to include, you know, the trappings of position, but just to focus on Jane as the person standing in my studio who I will inevitably have a relationship with. But I did think somehow by what she was wearing that particular day, there was a wonderful graphic quality to it, and it required kind of a stark approach to the composition. And I thought, well, the only thing I can really use here, which would make sense to show who it is we're dealing with, is to use the medallion that you wear sometimes around your neck when you're doing formal functions, and that kind of gives it away. I mean, once you see that, you kind of know what this portrait is. And at the same time, it reminded me that Holbein and others at that time used to use that device, using a coat of arms or some kind of insignia, top left, top right sometimes, and that would be all you'd need to know. And of course, thinking of Holbein, I then went from there to that lovely blue-green colour that he often used in the backgrounds of his portraits. For some reason, it's just an amazing colour to use with flesh tones. This is very red for some reason. I'm not sure why. It doesn't look like that on my screen, but I hope the rest of them aren't that ready. So we go from here to the next one, which is Her Madge. And this is one of two, actually, that I painted a couple of years ago. It's commissioned from the Jockey Club in Newmarket, and they were to have one, and the Queen was to have the other one. They were almost exactly the same. And by the time I finished doing those laurel leaves, I could do them in my sleep. I think I probably do them in my sleep, actually. That was used as a way also to kind of take the painting out of a particular time. That often royal portraits are, you know, you become aware that they're done at a particular moment in time. And this, instead of having a plain background, was just a frieze of leaves, and I thought that would be sort of visually interesting, but also perhaps a kind of timeless idea. And as far as the intersection between power and personality, which is what this talk is about, I think this kind of gives you a good place to focus those two issues. The one is that, you know, it's clearly we don't need to tell anybody who this is. Everybody knows who it is, so we can just make that assumption. But at the same time, it's a very clearly a portrait of somebody's relationship with their animals, which brings it to brings it out of that kind of magisterial arena. I too am running out of time, I'm sorry to say, but I should just quickly go through a couple more. It's also somebody we know, most of us know. That one was somewhat unfinished, and I left it while it was still monochrome, but I like it like that. I don't see that it needs to be any different. We just ran out of time, really, and as you can imagine, he's a busy man. But we did have a good time in this studio, which is his music room, where he used to live in Richmond. This is the Marquis of Bath, who you may also recognize. Absolutely amazing character, some sort of Faustian figure in the 21st century. Lives at Longleat, and after doing this, I continued to do the paint the rest of the family. So if you ever go to Longleat, there's, I don't know, half a dozen of them dotted about the house. And he used to come to London, come to my studio, wearing this. I mean, he didn't change into it. He would be wearing it all the time and regularly stop the traffic outside the studio. But I hope you can see that what I'm trying to do here is show that there is a person having a relationship with the person who's looking at him or her. And I've often been told that what my portraits look like is that they look like someone who's looking at you, the viewer, rather than being looked at. Often when you look at a portrait, you get the feeling that they're just passively taking the gaze of whoever it is who's looking at them. But with this, hopefully, it's the other way around, where you really get the feeling that you're being engaged by the sitter. That's another interesting character, Balthazar, who's become a friend. And again, you know, he belongs to this big dynasty, but you wouldn't know that at all from how the painting's presented. That's the wonderful Baroness Amos, Valerie Amos. This hangs in the House of Lords. They were extremely nervous about hanging this painting with this colour background on all of the acres of green Pugin wallpaper that they insisted just wouldn't go with it. This colour was chosen only because I was trying to show her the colour of my new house, which I was dabbing on the background before I'd done the background. I said, this is the colour, it's just like this. And, oh, actually that looks quite good. Maybe we should continue with this. So, and this is moving further towards my work that I call my personal work, which is like a sort of combination. This is a self-portrait, and it's connected to the kind of animist philosophies, man and nature becoming one. And this next one's difficult to see, but if you concentrate on it in the middle, you'll see things happening. And it's a portrait. It's a looped video of several portraits. But when you approach one of these portraits, it appears out of the gloom because there are lights, movement-sensitive lights that come on. So you don't see anything to start off with. You just see a black hole, and then these figures appear. But they're painted under layers of resin. So this, again, this is going more into my personal work, more into the symbolism of portraiture, and more into identity issues. This is the portraits that I did of all my friends who were represented as kind of spiritually on fire, and this was shown at Venice last year. And this is the beginning part of a portrait of my daughter, and then the resin coating on top, which again is like the other ones. It's very difficult to see, but once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. And that is again a way to deal with the ideas of identity in the double exposure. As a French film director, a friend of mine. And that is the last one, that's self-portrait. But again, self-portrait as a double exposure.